Watch Before You Die podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, and with me is my wonderful co-host, Gab.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking about the 2000 children's classic, probably a bit heavy to call classic, but what I think is a movie to watch before you die, The Emperor's New Groove. Now, Gab, you had never seen this before, so it's time for everybody's favorite segment. Probably not, but it's time for the one that I'm deeming your favorite segment. What's the plot of this movie?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
All right. So I will say this. I had never seen the movie before, but I did have a college roommate, Nicole. Shout out, Nicole, if you're listening, and I know that you are, who would quote this movie incessantly. And so I felt like I knew a lot of the major moments just from hearing her talk. But anyway, this movie is about an emperor, not fully disclosed of what or whom, but he is an emperor of a land, and he is very selfish and self-absorbed. He doesn't care about anybody else. He is not kind or generous. And he has this advisor who wants to be in charge. And so she comes up with a plan to kill him and accidentally turns him into a llama. And then some guy that he this is not concise. Some guy that he
Just letting you roll, letting you ramble.
I'm really struggling here. Some guy that he had asked, he summons him to the temple, the emperor's temple, because he wanted to know if where he lived had good sunlight so that he could build his summer home on there and pretty much kick him and his whole family out. So basically he turns into a llama. And then, of course, the man that he was going to do wrong has to help him come back to be a human. And I'm so sorry that everyone just had to listen to me say that.
Well, let's see if IMDb was able to do it in a slightly more concise way.
Yikes.
Emperor Cusco is turned into a llama by his ex-administrator Yzma and must now regain his throne with the help of Pacha, the gentle llama herder.
I mean, they left out some important details, but yes.
Okay, Gab, so I do have to interrupt us talking about The Emperor's New Groove for a little bit of mail that we received.
Mail time!
When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
Our probably first commenter, yes, our definite first commenter and great supporter, Scotty Cameron, has sent a comment on Georgia Rule. So first, he didn't know Cary Elwes. Well, why am I reading it? I'm going to read it what he wrote, not like me reading what he wrote. You know what I mean?
Read it in the first person as if you are Scotty.
That's what I meant. That's the thing.
I got you.
First, because he was the first comment. He might still be the only one. I know Cary Elwes from the first Saw movie because he was Dr. Lawrence Gordon. I didn't realize until looking through his IMDb page that he was in The Princess Bride and also The Quest for Camelot, which was actually the first movie I saw with Cary in it. Then Princess Bride, later saw The Final Chapter. Funny, this movie stars Garrett Hedlund in, I'm like, oh yeah, Georgia Rule. Funny, this movie stars Garrett Hedlund in the movie because he was the antagonist in Death Sentence, which was directed by James Wan, who directed the first Saw, and had the score composed by Charlie Clouser, who composed the score for the Saw movies. Do you know the Saw movies?
Yeah, I've seen the first one. It didn't leave an impression.
Really? I really like the first Saw. And I know that score well, that do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do.
Nothing.
I do randomly at times, I'll be like, game over.
I mean, I get it.
Let's see, and did you ever see Death Sentence? Because I feel like that's even more of a deep cut.
No, and I also can't believe that kid who played that role ever did anything else in his entire life.
Oh, they are, like, I don't remember the movie well. It's basically, it's funny. It's called Death Sentence. It's like the exact same concept as the movie Death Wish with Charles Bronson, where, you know, these gang type guys, he's Kevin Bacon's some innocent schmuck. His family gets killed by these horrible gangsters. I think their leader was like John Goodman. I think they're like skinheads or something. There's some group of very terrible people, and they kill his family. And Kevin Bacon's like, now I'm going to become a scumbag and kill all of them back. And you're like, oh shit. But yeah, I think Garrett Hedlund was like the semi-leader of the scumbags, the young leader.
Interesting. So, okay. John Goodman plays a skinhead. That's hard for me to wrap my head
John
around.
Goodman can do anything, including
Yeah.
make your skin crawl with how terrible he is.
You ever watch The Goldbergs?
I have not.
Okay, you should.
Perhaps I should.
You perhaps.
I thought it was a bit of an interesting connection. It's funny bringing up Death Sentence because, like Georgia Rule, it's another movie that isn't great, but the cast delivers great performances, particularly Kevin Bacon, Kelly Preston, John Goodman, and the aforementioned Garrett Hedlund. Death Sentence also came out the same year as Georgia Rule. Oh, so that's funny. So Garrett Hedlund's doing these two roles around the same time.
Wow.
I mean, I don't
Bad
know why.
luck.
Like as an actor, I'm like, that's a weird thing to do, but no, it's normal. It's just two different jobs.
Yeah.
Let me see. Where was I? Also, Charlie
Wait,
Klaus.
can I just say really quickly, and this will mean absolutely nothing to anybody but you and I, but I remember being like 6 or 7 years old and making a joke about Tommy Two Tone because Zach told us that after 8675309 was like a one-hit wonder, that he went on to work for like Windows or something. And I said Tommy Two Tone, more like Tommy Two Jobs. And it was the first time you two ever thought I was funny.
I think it was more like Tommy One Song.
No, I said two jobs. I'm positive because I think about it at least once a week.
Oh, God.
It was the first time you guys ever thought I was funny.
Well, we were
So-
young at the time.
What does that say about you? All right, continue.
I still like terrible punny jokes. Also, Charlie Clouser's score is great in it, which we did just talk about that. I wouldn't call Death Sentence a movie to watch before you die, per se, unless you really like Kevin Bacon or James Wan. I will say, when looking at Rotten Tomatoes, you should click the score because it will tell you how many critics liked it and didn't like it, and more importantly, what the average score for the film is. The Rotten
Interesting.
Tomatoes percentages largely serve as the film's approval as you are currently browsing the website. The average score and the like to dislike numbers will give you a better sense of the film's actual reception. Also, I will say I do like the segment intros, particularly hearing audio from Batman the Animated Series and Dredd. I might have to say, if you enjoy comic book movies and superhero movies, Dredd is definitely a movie to watch before you die. Carl Urban was a great Judge Dredd. I was a bit caught off guard by there being no mail time segment on the last episode. Maybe next episode the mail time segment will come back. Anyway, great show as always. Well, first of all, Scotty, the mail time segment is back.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Thanks to you. And
Um,
actually, we do have one more thing, but I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
I was just gonna say, listen, Scotty, thank you for being our number one fan.
We're just keeping this thing afloat for you, Scotty.
Also, does Zach listen to this?
I don't know.
Zach, if you're listening, and we know that you are, write us something. I'd like to know your take on my Tommy Two Jobs joke at this point in your life.
I don't think I want to know what Zach would make me read. We also have a voice message
Ooh,
from the one, the only, the Keen Machine.
oh boy.
So I'm going to play that for you now.
Okay.
Greetings, Dylan and Gab. Keen Machine here. Thank you for last week's episode. I enjoyed your commentary, and it's given me clear insight that I will not be pursuing a watch of Georgia Rule. So, glad to know. I will skip that one. Sounds very uncomfortable, and I'm glad that I did not have to experience it firsthand. I am also very excited for today's episode of The Emperor's New Groove, because I love that movie. It's finally a movie that I have actually seen that will be reviewed on the podcast, so I'm curious to see if that changes my perspective or deepens my understanding of the conversation. Anyway, looking forward to it. Keep it keen.
So it's nice that we're finally getting to a movie that someone has seen.
Yeah.
I'm sure other people have seen other movies, but I was actively talking to Keen off the podcast, and he was like, yeah, I still haven't seen a one of these yet. So I was
That's
very
so
happy
funny.
to find out that there was one he has.
I have questions. Number one, do you know this person in real life?
Not face to face. Because of another podcast, Jump on the Batwagon, on the Pod Tower YouTube channel, Watchtower Database, they talk about Batman the Animated Series. And
You
I
sound like
talk,
you're in a gang. Just so you know.
I am a yappy dude, and that means nothing to you, but the other yappy dudes know what a yappy dude is.
Okay.
Basically, me and Keen are both in that podcast every week as people who just message into it. So we have ended up forming a bond as yappy dudes.
I like that. Okay, that's nice. Don't get yourself killed. Is that truly his first name? Because I know somebody whose last name is Keen, and we call him Keen sometimes.
No, Keen Machine is not his true name.
Well,
I don't know if he wants his true
thanks.
name said on the podcast, so
Okay,
I will
that's
not
fair.
say it.
that's fair. That's fine. I wouldn't want his gang alias to be ruined. All right, those are my only questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, Scotty. Thank you, Keen, for sending stuff into the podcast. We hope you continue to do it.
Please
And
do.
I guess we'll get back to talking about Emperor's New Groove and hopefully agreeing that it's a movie to watch before you die.
Let's find out.
Yes. It doesn't, well, perhaps, what's the plot, in the least spoilery way? I think that does a pretty good job.
Sure.
The tagline, it's all about me, which obviously is meant to be about Cusco at the beginning.
Right.
But since we have now gone on about what the plot is, I think it's time that we should get into our opinions.
Okay.
In this critic's opinion,
That's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
So I'm very excited to hear what you thought of this. I have a lot I could say about it. I was sort of, I was doing my thing where I take my notes as the movie's going on, and I feel like I really enjoy this movie, and I feel like hopefully when we get to the facts, it should back me up. I don't want to spoil that either. But now we'll get into some spoilers for sure. Tell me what you thought of the movie. What did you think? What was your opinion? Tell me how much you loved it.
Okay, so I came into this movie with very high expectations because, like I said, my roommate Nicole is a huge fan. I knew the line about I'm going to turn him into a flea and put him in a box and put that box in a bigger box and whatever.
Smash it with a hammer.
Yes. So I was really excited. I will fully disclose that I watched this movie this morning. I am a little under the weather. I'm not really feeling great. I have a cold. So I don't know if that really had anything to do with it, but I'm going to say I do not want to sound like somebody who is trying to disagree with you because I'm not. I was genuinely disappointed by this movie. I'm sorry. I know, but let me explain why. I think that there are so many kids movies, like animated kids movies that have great humor for adults. And I don't need it to be like innuendos or things that like kids don't understand. I just think there are so many children's movies that are hilarious and so good. And this one just fell a little short. I didn't think the plot was great. I felt like kind of short, which typically is not something that I complain about. And I just felt like the whole thing about like his groove, and like I know in the beginning the guy's like, oh, I threw off his groove and he threw me out the window, but like that kind of never really comes back. I thought it was going to be a take on The Emperor's New Clothes, which is a kid story about the emperor that winds up being naked, and I felt like it was a little too obvious. And I know we're talking about a kid's movie, but I just felt like he isn't clearly an asshole. And then the funny lady and obviously Putty wants to fucking, can I curse on this podcast? Wants
we've
to,
done it before.
Yeah, we've done it before. It's our podcast. We'll curse if we want to. They want to take over his job, and so then he gets turned into a llama, and I felt like they did like the Cusco is narrating, and then he like stops the movie to give dialogue, and then like that only happens once. I don't know. There was never a moment where I was like, this movie is so good. I was like, this movie is fine.
See, what's funny is I do feel like all the humor works just as easily as an adult. It's not like, a bunch of fart and pee pee poo poo humor.
Yeah.
It is funny that you bring up, they only brought up the groove thing like once, and I do feel like the whole movie is about his groove being thrown off. But I would also say, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this, to go back to previous films we discussed. In the film Georgia Rule, which is titled Georgia Rule, they mentioned Georgia Rule like twice at the beginning and then like one more time. And it's like, why does this matter? She's not even like the main character of this movie.
Sure.
Not that matters. I'm not going to try and bring up my movie by bringing down a previous film. That doesn't help anyone.
But that's a very good point, and I appreciate that. I think that it was one of those movies where it had funny moments, it had funny lines, but because I had heard a lot of the good quotes already, everything else that wasn't a quote that I recognized was like just okay. It felt very predictable. I didn't think that there were any, like, I could have guessed the storyline right from the beginning.
I would say the story and the characters are not trying to surprise you in any way. There is nothing, it's not new. It's not undone. It hasn't, it has been done. I don't know what undone isn't a word. Whatever. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think that that's part of what I do appreciate about it, is that this thing, I feel like, knows exactly what it wants to be.
Yeah.
It moves at it moves at a quick pace. It's 78 minutes, so it is quick. It never feels like it's fast to me, and it feels like it ramps up momentum that by the time we get to the last 20 minutes, it is moving at a breakneck pace. And I think that it does such a good job of, you sort of know what the story is. You sort of understand these characters the moment you see them. From the first introductions, you understand Kuzco is selfish and immature. Pacha is kind and respectful. Yzma is power hungry and uncaring. You know what I mean? She says, well, you shouldn't have been a peasant. And the fact that you know these characters immediately and you sort of understand, like, okay, well, I'm sure that you probably saw the commercial or you had some awareness, like, this guy gets turned into a llama. I guess the movie's about him trying to unbecome a llama. So I don't think in any way that it's supposed to do that. But it is disappointing to hear that you knew some of the quotes already, because I do think that, one, this is such a quotable film. And two, I think that this movie is just trying to get you to laugh and have fun for just under an hour and a half. And you know what? I've seen this movie a bunch of times now, and I find myself laughing every time, even if I've heard the things already. Like, there are moments in this movie that make me cackle. There's a moment at the end where Yzma is running and screaming, and Eartha Kitt does this scream that just makes me cackle out loud every time I hear it, where she's like, ah, like just running at them. It cracks me up.
So I just want to pause you right there. I didn't know that was Eartha Kitt.
Oh, so okay. So let me mention the cast real quick then.
Yeah, please.
Even though that's not our opinion, it's important to know. So the movie stars, obviously, David Spade as Kuzco from Saturday Night Live, Tommy Boy. What's the third thing? I guess Joe Dirt?
No. He did that TV show. They were all working in an office.
Oh, Just Shoot Me. Good show.
Just Shoot Me. Thank you.
Which Wendy Malick is Pacha's wife. She was on Just Shoot Me as well. Not important. John Goodman plays Pacha, who you know from Roseanne, Monsters Inc., The Big Lebowski.
Monsters Inc. A much better kids movie, but we'll get there.
I would say Monsters Inc. in the end is better. I don't know if I'd say it's funnier, but sure. And Eartha Kitt, who to me is known for being Catwoman from Batman in the 60s, and she was also Madame Zeroni from Holes.
And she was in the original cast of Godspell.
Is that right?
Actually, I have no idea. As that came out of my mouth, I realized that may not be true.
Thank goodness this is opinion time, because you're just making things up.
I am literally making things up. Hold on, let me see. I'm looking this
while
up
you
on the
look
internet.
that up, also Patrick Warburton as our fourth and final main player plays Kronk, who was famously David Puddy on Seinfeld, and he's Joe Swanson on Family Guy as well, and he's probably the comedic MVP of the movie.
Yes.
This was directed by Mark Dindal, who also directed Chicken Little and the upcoming Garfield movie, which
did anybody ask for that?
No, and did anybody ask for Chris Pratt to be him? But that's not important.
Yeah.
This movie has 11 credited writers, which normally to me is like a bad sign. But collectively, these writers have worked on Moana, Bolt, Brother Bear, Mulan, Meet the Robinsons, Tarzan, I said Tarzan weird, Aladdin,
That's embarrassing.
and Hercules. But the screenplay credit goes to David Reynolds, who was a writer on Mulan and the upcoming Garfield film. So did you find out, is Eartha Kitt in Godspell, the original cast?
She's not in Godspell, but I will say this. Here, I want to explain why I made such a hasty comment like that. When I was in Godspell, I played a character who's based on Eartha Kitt. So Eartha Kitt was not in Godspell, but there is a character that is, her name is Sonia, and she's similar to her, and that's the character that I played. So I associate those two. But anyway, listen. 11 writers, good heavy hitters. I get it. And I didn't dislike this film. I just felt like at the end, when it was over, I thought to myself, I could name 10 movies of a similar, from a similar category that are, I think, funnier or
but they
more
could
memorable.
all be movies to watch before you die, Gab. You can still go down the right path here.
I don't know. And Dylan, I wanted to agree. I actually said to you offline last week, this is going to be the first time we agree. And I was ready. I was excited. I put this movie on. I was like, I'm going to love this. And it just fell a little short for me.
I can't say how disappointed I am.
I believe it. I'm disappointed too. I don't want to disagree with you. I mean, I've known you my whole life. You are, we're blood related. We should agree on at least this at the minimum.
Well, the only thing we've agreed on so far in this podcast is we both like movies, just not at all the same ones.
That's not true. We both dislike the Lizzie McGuire movie.
That's true. We both definitely dislike the Lizzie McGuire movie.
Yeah.
And I guess I would say we both agreed that Georgia Rule isn't a movie to watch before you die either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I was going to give more of just my opinions, I would say that I do feel the voice acting rises a notch above, I think, in this movie. I think all of the voice acting is really well cast. Those
I'll
four
agree with
main
that.
people that we went over, like David Spade is not somebody I think of as a good actor. Sorry if you're listening, David Spade, but
And we know that you are.
we know he is. Yes, of course. I think he is so good as Cusco, and you can tell, and I know that they talked about it, and I looked up the behind the scenes type stuff again, that they would study the voice actors as they were recording to try and get their mannerisms, and I'm like, you can feel that come through.
Yeah.
Apache feels like John Goodman, that Cusco feels like David Spade, that Yzma feels like Eartha Kitt. And Eartha Kitt in particular, like, I guess all four of them do a great job, but Eartha Kitt also just goes 110% on every single line.
Yeah.
Like, Eartha Kitt is never playing it subtly. And I kind of love that throughout this whole movie.
Yzma was definitely my favorite character. I think the Yzma and what's his name? Kronk duo is so good. I loved them. And honestly, her lines were the ones that really stuck with me. Like I said, the one about the flea, those are why do we even have this lever? Like, so funny. I definitely think David Spade was great as Cusco. It's funny. I told my boyfriend that we were doing this movie, and he said, he goes, "Oh, it's David Spade's best movie," and it's true. I really think it is.
Not that puts it again. There's not much competition there, but it is.
Yeah. I think I just love Todd Putty, and I know he has a real name, and I just don't care. He's so great in everything. If you go to Disney World and you go on this ride called Soarin', he does like the intro video that you watch before you go on, and he's just even good in that. Like, he's so great. And John Goodman obviously is a delight all the time. It was really, really well done, and there were definitely moments that were funny and silly. I don't know. It didn't check all the boxes for me.
This also, just for the first time, I've just made this connection in my head. Yzma is sort of the Dick Cheney to Cusco's George W. Bush. Like, this is made just before they were in office, but in my mind, I'm like, Yzma's really the one who's in control and has the power, but Cusco's the face of everything.
Yeah.
He thinks he has the power. I'm sure that that's not intentional, but in my mind, like, when you were first talking about the movie, I was like, Yzma's Dick Cheney. I don't know why that clicked, but it did.
Well, I was thinking it in terms of Game of Thrones. Like, this is the hand of the king.
Yes, I actually wrote down here, with all the talk of empires and succession, it's kind of like an adorable House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
So I was sort of writing the same mindset.
Don't say anything else about House of the Dragon.
Well,
haven't seen it yet.
In case you don't know, there's a lot of talk about Succession in House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Another HBO show with a lot of talk of Succession.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's God, I feel like such an asshole for coming on here and telling you that I just didn't really think it was that great, but I just didn't.
And it's funny too, because there's so many quotes that are so good that I feel like I still say in this movie all the time. Like, I feel like Giselle and I all the time are like, "Eh, Pacha? Is that my voice? Is that my voice?" I'm sure that there's 1,000 more. I do love pretty much every line Kronk says is funny too. When he's communicating with the squirrels, when he is
so funny,
the chef in the restaurant briefly, when he wakes up and he's like, "That guy in the diner," and you think he's gonna make the connection, he goes, "He didn't pay his check." It's just like all these little connections that he makes.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say other than it's very disappointing.
I loved the moment with the doors where she's coming in and says she wants cheese, and then he comes in and says he doesn't want cheese, and they're
Did you
going around
notice
and
that
around.
because of how quickly they're saying that, he starts to pour the cheese, and as Yzma goes no cheese, he takes the hand with the oven mitt and just slides it underneath the cheese to stop it? I never noticed
Yes.
that before. This time I was like, oh damn, Kronk with the save.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, I really did I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought it was funny. It just didn't I just feel like there are so many other movies in that category that are better. And it just I had such high expectations and it just fell a little short.
I think, Gab, as we've said before, this is not a podcast for Godfather or Citizen Kane. And maybe those other 10 animated movies you're thinking of are the obvious classic animated films. Like,
No.
sure, we're not going to. Okay. I'm like, sure, we're not
Like-
going to Toy Story, but Emperor's New Groove, I think it deserves to be on a higher tier than it is because I think it's very underrated, unlike you.
Well, I don't know. I just and listen, maybe this is nostalgia. Like right now, I just Googled best animated movies of all time. And I'm going to tell you some of the ones that I think are better.
Well, I didn't say it's the greatest animated film ever made.
No, I know. I'm just saying, there are a handful. I think Shrek is much funnier. I think Hercules is better.
I definitely don't think Hercules is better.
You're out of your fucking mind.
And it's not nostalgia because I didn't see this movie until I was probably in my 20s, I think.
No. I'm saying that there's nostalgia from the movies that we watched when we were kids.
Ah, gotcha.
I think Aladdin is better.
I definitely don't think Aladdin's funnier. Is Aladdin a better dramatic story? Yes. I think this movie makes me laugh a lot more.
I suppose. I'm still looking.
I think that's important. This movie is not trying to be highly dramatic. It is trying to be funny.
Yeah. I get that.
And Aladdin, not that funny.
Well,
People being called street rats and threatened to have their hands chopped off. Kind of unfunny.
I think that Robin Williams is really funny.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to be this guy.
Oh,
I think
no.
Robin Williams is a little overrated.
Well, you can't speak ill of the dead, so
Yes, obviously R.I.P.
R.I.P. Yeah, I feel like I should have looked this up before we started recording. But yeah, I don't know. This isn't about comparing one movie to another,
Yes.
right? So it doesn't really matter. I just, like I said, I really wasn't feeling great. I put it on, I laughed, but at the end, when it was over, I was like, I my life is no better off now that I've seen this. I already knew all the good parts, and it was just okay.
Well, it's not my fault. You knew all the good parts.
No, I know, but
would you recommend this movie to somebody else who was looking just for a fun movie? If somebody needed a fun way to spend an hour and a half, would you tell them to watch this movie?
no. Because I can just
Fuck
think of
you.
so many No, fuck you. I could just think of so many better movies.
Okay. All right. Well, it seems like our opinions are at an impasse. So should we get to the facts and see who those back up?
Let's get to the facts.
I want the truth!
Face the facts, ducks.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
Let's start with some facts. First, we're going to give the IMDb score, which is a respectable 7.4 out of 10. It's a pretty good grade. C
Yep.
on a test, which isn't, great, but you passed.
You
You're
passed.
good. Rotten Tomatoes, audience score 83%. Even better. Tomato meter, 86% certified fresh.
Damn.
So I'm just saying. The critics' consensus says that The Emperor's New Groove isn't the most ambitious animated film, but its brisk pace, fresh characters, and big laughs make for a great time for the whole family. And I would 1000% agree with that. And, I think that it speaks to what we're both saying. I think your biggest problem is that the story didn't do much for you. And I think what I'm trying to say is it's not really trying to.
Yeah.
Okay. Box office probably supports you a bit because the budget of this movie was $100 million and it made $169.7 million, which, isn't chump change, but it's not enough to really make your money back.
So, pause. I was thinking about this the other day. Briefly explain to me, if you know, and you may not,
Mhm.
how could an animated movie cost $100 million?
Well, when you think about it, animation can easily end up being more expensive than live action frequently. Um, First, what you have to think about is the fact that it takes longer.
Mm.
You know, when you're shooting an actual film, you know, a movie can be shot in a matter of a month,
Uh-huh.
but people are drawing. This was 2D animation mostly, so people were drawing every day for years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I do think that it racks up costs quickly. And the thing about this movie also is that it had a lot of trouble. So it's another part of the facts that I was going to tell you about. So I'm just going to get to that now. First, I'll tell you that there is a bit of a franchise from this. There was a direct-to-video sequel, Kronk's New Groove,
Uh-huh.
and a TV show, The Emperor's New School. There was a documentary about the making of the movie, directed by Sting's wife, Trudy Styler.
Random.
Well, did you notice that Sting has a song at the end?
Yeah, I did.
It kind of feels very random, no?
It was so jarring. Like the movie was over and that song started playing and I was like, "Oh god."
Which also because the Tom Jones music works so well. I love the
Yeah.
two little Tom Jones ditties. But the documentary, which is called, oh my god, where's the name? The Sweatbox. The documentary is about how the movie transformed from Kingdom of the Sun, which was the original title of it, which was more of a generic musical about a prince named Manco or an emperor named Manco switching with Pacha. And it was much more of a musical with several songs from Sting.
Uh.
So eventually, they had a screening of Kingdom of the Sun, and from what I saw in the documentary, which I ended up not just watching the movie, I ended up watching this whole documentary too. I was able to find it online.
Wow.
Basically, that movie got scrapped almost entirely, and you just see like animators doing, you know, those standalone interviews, and they're like, I don't even know if my character is going to be in the movie. You know what I mean? So you just see these poor people panicking, and you're like, oh snap. But it seems like pretty much everything stayed the same as far as amount of characters and such. So it was an interesting documentary because it does just seem like a normal making of until 40 minutes in when everything sort of hits the fan.
Wow.
And there was one line from Sting that I thought was interesting because Sting is actually in a lot of it. Obviously, it's made by his wife. I think it's a real concern of mine that I'm allied to this organization that seems to want to take the best of different cultures, suck them up, and then spit them out as something that's like a hamburger. It's not really what I want to do.
Oh,
and it was
god.
like, you knew that when you agreed to work with Disney, homie. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Sting. Like, what did you think this was? The House of Mouse gets what it wants.
Damn.
Okay. There was actually also an interesting thing, again, you know, from the making of. They did a research trip. I know you were saying, like, where is this supposed to be? They did a research trip to Machu Picchu in Peru for 10 days to see Incan art, culture, and what Peru and South America were like in general. They had animators go to llama farms and the zoos to see how they behaved, which I really don't understand why they had to do that much on that.
Yeah, for real.
And one other interesting fact, the original ending has Cusco still building Cuscotopia just on like a hill directly next to Pacha. The director, Mark Dindal, said it was Sting who pointed out to them that it was socially irresponsible and not ecologically friendly, and luckily saved them from what were they thinking moment. Also, in the original ending, Kronk is with Cusco and Pacha and all the villagers making dessert.
Oh.
So
wait, hold on. It was who Sting pointed it out to them that it was irresponsible? What?
Sting pointed out that if by the end of this movie, because at the end of the movie, you know, obviously we've already said spoilers, but major spoilers. At the end of the movie, Cusco has like a little shack, the same as Pacha's, you know, and he's just hanging out with him in his summer home.
Yeah.
In the original version, Cusco still builds Cuscotopia, that major mansion to himself with this huge water slide. And Sting pointed out, he was like, isn't this guy supposed to have changed and, you know, become a better person? And you see again in the documentary him writing this whole letter. And he's like, I don't know if they'll agree with me, but I had to say how I feel. Which it just sounds so douchey coming from Sting. But then you see like them all reading it in the room and they're like, yeah, he's totally right. Like, I was just very surprised to see all the people at Disney be like, yeah, we're wrong on this one.
Wow.
So they did end up changing
okay.
that.
So that makes sense because yeah, he didn't really have like a huge, obviously he just had like a regular house like everybody else.
Yes. And I do also have a couple of reviews, and I did try and you know, they're mostly good since this was 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I tried to get a couple of, you know, bad ones as well just to play both sides. So first, our IMDb featured review. 10 out of 10 underrated Disney gem. Being in development hell for a very long time and released to not much hype, The Emperor's New Groove is often unjustifiably overlooked as one of the Disney masterpieces. It has fast comedic timing, a sharp script, and all-star cast, where Patrick Warburton's performance especially stands out. The animation is top-notch, like we expect from Disney, with very colorful and vibrant visuals that leap off the screen. One of those flicks that gets better with each viewing, so a must to check out. The other person that I feel like I always look up now is Roger Ebert. I feel like for you and me, Roger Ebert is like the GOAT of movie reviewers.
Yep.
So he gave it 3 stars out of 4. And he said, when the Looney Tunes trademark came on the screen at the kiddie matinee of long ago, kids would cheer in unison because they knew they were going to have unmitigated fun. The Emperor's New Groove evokes the same kind of spirit. And what I found when I looked at Rotten Tomatoes is a lot of these reviews said very similar things, that it was reminiscent of Chuck Jones, reminiscent of Warner Brothers, reminiscent of Looney Tunes. And it's not something I'd ever thought of before, but I totally see it. Because again, Looney Tunes, you're never getting a complicated story out of one of those. You're getting hijinks and shenanigans that are going to make you laugh.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's exactly what the movie gives me. I feel like saying that I can skip a bunch of the good reviews that I have here. So I'll just read 2 of them.
Okay.
Warburton, George M. Thomas. Warburton creates one of the truly most memorable Disney characters in the seemingly dim-witted Kronk. Eric Lurio from the Greenwich Village Gazette. Grab a kid and go see this as soon as possible. I don't know why I found that really funny, because it's like, he didn't even say like grab your kids. He was like, you find a kid on the streets and you make them watch this.
Grab any kid.
Find some children, force them to watch this film.
Yeah.
Okay. Bruce Newman from the San Jose Mercury News. Feels like some lame focus group attempt by a bunch of people who have grown hopelessly middle-aged to make themselves hip with the kids.
Huh.
I felt that was a bit harsh.
Yeah, I don't know that I would agree with that.
Well, it definitely sounds like you're not even saying that it was bad. You're just saying it doesn't reach the level that you feel it needs to.
Yeah. Also, this is this is an afterthought at this point, but the Cusco has like a catchphrase, right? It's like booyah or something,
And
right?
he's like, boom, baby.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a catchphrase, but yeah, he says it. Yeah.
He says it a couple times. I hate that. I just wanted you to know
Oh,
I just
okay.
hate that. I just think that's lame. But anyway, so that to me, when he says it's like trying to sound cool with the kids, like that's kind of what I feel like he's saying. That I would agree
Okay.
with. But otherwise, I think that's a bit harsh.
The one other one, and the negative one at least, that I had from Susan Stark of the Detroit News, who gave it 2 stars out of 4. So again, she still didn't think it was terrible, because to me that's like a passable rating.
Yeah.
An audience dominated by young children was disconcertingly quiet during a preview screening. Which again, maybe it just didn't hit that audience right, because I'm telling you, I had to search hard to find like those 2 really negative reviews, because most of them were pretty glowing. And a lot of them, like I said, were, it's nothing over the top special classic, but they all were very complimentary of, that it doesn't feel like Disney as much as it feels like Warner Brothers, and it has that Chuck Jones Looney Tunes feel to it.
Yeah.
One of them is, this is the best Warner Brothers cartoon Disney ever made, by George Perry.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I do think that a lot of the facts do back up this as, maybe not the perfect film or anything, but I would say that the facts mostly back up this movie as a movie to watch before you die. The box office withstanding.
I think it sounds like what the facts back up is that this is a movie that you can take your kids to and won't wish you were dead during. However, I don't think that makes it a movie to watch before you die.
God, that sounds harsh. I still,
Sorry. You know what? I'll never forget this. When I was in high school, maybe I took my brother to see this movie that he really wanted to see. My brother is 14 years younger than I am, so he must have been 3 or so. And the movie he wanted to see was the movie about the Easter Bunny with what's his face? Katy Perry's ex-husband.
Russell
British
Brand.
guy, Russell Brand. And then the movie, I just remember it was about the Easter Bunny.
Yeah, I have no
and
idea what
Russell
movie you're
Brand was
talking
in
about.
it. And it was probably about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit less. And every passing second, I was like, if I could just gouge my own eyeballs out. And to me, like, yeah, this is way better than that, but that doesn't make
Okay.
this a movie to watch before you die.
And I can agree with that. Did you have fun watching this movie at least?
You know what? I'm gonna say no, but that has nothing to do with the
Oof.
movie. I was just laying on the couch with a box of tissues, like thinking that this would improve my misery, and it didn't.
By the way, I do have a similar to that Easter Bunny story, and it's like only a couple of years ago that me and my grandma, we took my nephew Chase to see Hotel Transylvania 3.
Oh God.
Neither me or grandma has seen a Hotel Transylvania film. So we sit there, we watch the movie, and I remember it finished. And I went, "What'd you think, Grandma?" And she went, "I'm glad Chase had a good time." And I was like, "Yup, that sounds right."
Yep.
So I am very disappointed both in your illness and your feelings about the film, because I feel like the illness had an impact on the film's enjoyment.
Maybe.
So
I feel like I was in a position to be like uplifted with some lighthearted comedy.
there's definitely plenty of lighthearted comedy, but let's get to our verdicts now so that we can be more as clear as it seems on this one.
Sure.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence
is death.
I have a feeling I can predict what your verdict is because you basically have spelled it out by this point. As much as it seems like I think this is an underrated movie, a movie to watch before you die, you're going to say otherwise, no?
I believe that this movie is accurately rated. I do not think it is a bad movie. I do not think that it is a movie that is not worth watching, but I think that it is definitely, it falls short of the sort of elusive category of movies to watch before you die.
I think you sound like a real cronk right now. I'm trying to think if I have anything else, that I can really. I don't think I have anything else here that I can back up the film with. I feel sad
I
to
hope
say.
you can't hear me blowing my nose into the microphone.
I was trying to wait to see if I could hear it.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it at all, but it definitely, I had high expectations that it just didn't meet them. And I think I would watch it again for sure. No problem. It was easy going. It was quick, but it just didn't do it for me.
Okay. It does sound like at the very least it was painless. It
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
bring you down, certainly. Okay.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was honestly one of the I'm trying to think about this before I say it. It was of the movies you chose to watch, probably my favorite.
I'm not sure how to take that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that's exactly a compliment, so I'm also like, screw you.
Well, that we've been jumping around from genre to genre, and I think this is probably the one that I think was the most enjoyable for me.
Yeah, we haven't hit the winner yet, but we're close. We're gonna get
We're
there.
close. I have a feeling that I have the winner for next week.
Okay, so as we're getting ready to wrap things up, I'd love to hear what is the movie going to be for next week.
So as we watched this movie, and it kind of fell short for me on the laughs, I thought I have a movie that is going to crack him up, make him laugh, that we can definitely agree is a world-class comedy, movies to watch before you die. And so the movie I've chosen is called The Birdcage, starring who you believe is underrated, Robin Williams, Nathan Lane,
I believe
and
he's overrated.
Hank Azaria.
I
Overrated.
do like all of those people. I do like Robin Williams, don't get me wrong.
Of course.
So I am excited to watch it. I feel like I know very little about this movie.
Good.
So I'm not going to look anything up for it. Obviously, the only thing I'll look up is where I can watch it and how.
Yep.
But I am excited.
It's great. It's one of my favorites. It makes me laugh out loud every time. It's so good. And Hank Azaria used to be my next door neighbor, so I feel very personally attached to him.
I mean, he wasn't your best friend.
No, but we
there was
said
always,
hi to each
there was
other
always a
every
wall
day.
between you guys. You know what I mean?
Sure, but then sometimes I'd see him in the park walking his dog, and I'd say hi, and he'd go, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, "Okay, I love you."
Okay, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's dope. One time I saw him wearing a Duff beer shirt, so how about that?
I feel like that's so I feel like you're requesting to have people come up to you if you're Hank Azaria wearing something Simpsons related.
I know.
And I feel like
That's
he's
great.
probably I feel like also everybody's are probably private people, but that's like, come talk to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody really ever bothered him. I don't think anybody ever really recognized him because, like, what did he do that was not animated, like, in the past 10 years?
I was gonna say Along Came Polly, but that's definitely more than 10 years ago by this point.
Way
he
more
had
than 10 years.
he had a TV show on Showtime where he was a baseball announcer.
Oh, yeah. The Brock.
You're so close, and I can't remember.
It's something Brock. I
Something
actually
like
have been
that.
meaning to watch that, but The Birdcage is excellent. You're going to absolutely love it. I'm so excited. It's hilarious. I can't wait. This is the one we're going to agree on for sure.
Hopefully, The Birdcage is the one. If you've seen The Birdcage, let us know what you think of that movie, or tell me if you think The Emperor's New Groove is definitely a movie to watch before you die or not. I'd love to hear that too. You can send us an email at movies2watchbeforeyouDie@gmail.com, or you can send a voice message in at anchor.fm/movies-to-watch. Gab, is there anything else that we need to shout out or plug or anything, or do we just say goodbye now?
I think we just say goodbye. And I just want to reiterate that I am not trying to disagree with you. I am not trying to be a contrarian.
She's definitely trying to disagree with me.
No,
I can feel it. She's holding up a
guys-
piece of paper right now that says, I try to disagree with you, Dylan.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. As always, please reach out, give us some movie recommendations. We want to know what you think is a movie to watch before you die. And we will talk to you next week.
Yeah, thank you again for watching, listening. Leave us a comment, subscribe on YouTube, do all the things on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. There's a bunch of different places you can find it. Find it on one of them. Tell somebody else to listen. And again, as always, thank you for listening and have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Get them!
Hey, I've been turned into a cow. Can I go home?
You're excused. Anyone else?
No, we're good. We're good.
Get them!